Welcome. So my name is Kasia Wyszyński, and this is JKA's Solvents and Glue 30-minute class, all in standing. And this is our number 2 class. What we're going to do today is we're going to start with a very brief review of what we learned last time. And we will introduce some elements of bending the knees, shifting the weight while the knees are bent, and then we'll come into beginning to move the pelvis. We will need a stool, okay? So a stool or a chair. I have a stool like this, so flat surface is best. And of course, you do what you can with this, but firm, hard surface is the best, okay? We will just spend a moment in sitting. So I just want to tell you, I have a little bit of a technical thing here going. So I'm not sure if you will see the top of my head, but I switched the camera so we have a better quality. I'll get better at it. Okay, so let's begin. So start with standing in a step position, okay? We go right into where we were last time. Again, I'm wearing shoes for those of you who weren't here last time. Best practice is without the shoes. I'm wearing them because some of the joints in my feet are not happy on this hardwood floor. I mean, it's not hardwood, it's actually tiles, so really hard. So 1 foot forward. Take a moment to sense how you're standing in this position. A reminder, you can change the elements of length of the step and the width of the step as we go along. And begin to move your weight, the pressure between your foot, between your 2 feet, forward and back. And we were talking about noticing how we bring the weight to the front of the front foot as we shift the weight. And then how do we move towards the back foot, sensing the heel of the back foot, right? And you can make the step shorter to make it simpler for yourself. And notice how you move the weight. Do you bend at the hips and lean forward? Is the head going forward and back? Do you move more forward with the pelvis and back, or is there a diagonal element? It's all okay. You just listen to what solutions your body is finding. Wonderful. Stop, stand for a moment on both feet, and then switch. Put the other foot in front. Notice how this arrangement is for you, and then move the weight. Forward, feeling, where is that front of the front foot and the back. Feet on the floor, knees straight, okay? And this is just kind of a check-in that we can use for ourselves, how we move through the ankles, how we move through the hips. Just a really simple activity. Good, stay in that step. And then let's remind ourselves of lifting the front of the front foot, sensing how the weight remains on the heel, and then eventually bringing the weight of the body forward, flexing the front ankle. Stop, lift the back heel, and notice how the pressure now from the back ball of the foot, the push into the floor, can bring you to standing on the front foot. Now, one element that is very nice to kind of find your back ankle is stay on the front leg and see how could you lower the back heel without bringing the weight there. Okay, and then lift again. And that can highlight for you your back ankle, or you can feel that you do something in the hip higher up in your torso. Good. And then a few times go front foot and back heel. And shift your weight using your feet, using your ankles, or however else you do it, right? And then stop. Switch your feet. And begin to lift the front of your front foot. Knees straight. Notice the bending in your front ankle. Stop. Lift the back heel a few times. Shifting the weight to the front. And then at some point, stay on that front leg. And then see, how would I lower the back heel without necessarily bringing the weight there right away? And then begin to shift. Front foot, back foot, lifting the ball of the front foot, lifting the back heel. Excellent. Stop. Stand for a moment. Check in with yourself. Notice the breathing. Notice, did you stop breathing as we practiced? Recover that breath. And take a little walk. Walk around in your space. Notice your ankles. Notice the shift of the weight. Notice the movement throughout yourself. And please come back. And let's take a moment to stand. Take a look at your feet, please, and notice how do you arrange your feet? Are your feet pointing straight forward? Do you notice the toes pointing a little out to the side? Or maybe one foot is more out to the side and the other is forward. Or maybe the toes are in. Don't change anything for now. Just be aware of that configuration that your body finds. And then just simply begin to bend your knees and notice, how is it to lower yourself, lower your torso a little bit and soften the knees. How much? It's really not so important. You can make it really small and just notice, how do I lower my center of mass? How do I bring it up? And then sense, are you more on your back of the feet, more towards your heels with your pressure, with your weight? Or are you more towards the front, towards the toes? Excellent. Now, let's all bring the pressure, bring the weight a little more towards your heels. Not to the point where you're falling and you feel you have to stop breathing. Just a little bit more pressure on your heels. Maintain it. And then as you maintain it, could you bend your knees and straighten them? That's interesting. If that's not your habitual way, can you notice what is different as you bend your knees? There may be a difference higher up in your body. Notice your breathing. When is the inhale? When is the exhale? And I'm not saying to coordinate it necessarily with the movement, but just sense that you do breathe. Stop. Bring the pressure more towards the balls of your feet. So now your heels will be a little lighter, not off the floor, just a little lighter. And you feel that you have the pressure more towards metatarsals, towards the toes. Maintain it and then bend the knees here. Right, and it's interesting. Some of you may notice something different sensation in your torso, in the position of your pelvis or the back, or the breathing. And if you don't necessarily notice anything different, just do it. Just give your system that experience. And then what about finding the place where you're both on your heels and the balls of your feet? So you're somewhere in between, over your arches, and then bend your knees there. Yeah, it's very interesting to notice as you're bending your knees and you maybe gaze down, notice the direction in which the knees are bending. Is it matching the direction of your feet? It's always better when the knees are bending more or less the way that the feet are pointing, but try and just notice for now. Great. Stop. Sense for a moment you're standing. And do a little walk around again, just to rest, but also to sense after this how the walking is for you. So we looked at the bending of the knees in our symmetrical position. Now let's take it to the position with one foot in front of the other. So please take a step. You may want to experiment with the length and the width of the step here and sense where your weight is. Do you have the weight more on the back foot, more on the front foot, somewhere in the middle? Again, we don't correct, we don't change right now, we just notice. And now in this position, how would it be to bend both knees? You can make it really soft and small. There's no need to do a lot. It's not about the range that we kind of experiment. Notice feet are on the floor. Where is the weight? Wherever the weight is, you bend your knees. Excellent. Stop. Rest a moment. Switch your feet. Notice how do you arrange your feet? Are your toes pointing forward when you're in the step position? Many of you will have the foot pointing, the back foot pointing a little out to the side. That's fine. You may want to try and experiment with what about if both feet are more or less forward, but don't force yourself to it. We'll spend time with that later. And then just bend both knees a little bit and come up. And then the interesting sensation here also is to again find, am I breathing? Or is this movement, this tiny movement of bending the knees, the hips, the ankles in a certain way, creates change in how the torso is arranged in terms of breathing. You might slow down, maybe stop a little bit and find where's the breath, forward, backwards, sideways. Keep coming back to the sense of the torso being like a container for the breath and see if that can help you find it. Very good. Stop. Stand a moment again. Let's switch the feet again. And now let's experiment with the weight on our feet as we bend the knees. So we combine these two elements for a moment. So let's all bring the weight a little bit more towards the back foot, just a little bit more. Some of you may feel, oh, I'm already here, then you do nothing. And then maintaining the weight on the back foot. Please bend both knees a little bit and come up. Bend. Of course, if the knee in the back is complaining, try and make the step a little smaller, not as much pressure, and then see, can you do it here? Now, see, can you bring the weight a little bit to the front foot? A little bit to the front foot with your knees first straight and then bend the knees here. Do you feel the front heel? Do you feel the ball of the front foot? And then find a place somewhere in the middle where you feel both feet more or less equally loaded. And then find, can I bend the knees? Now stay down and then see, can I bring a little bit more pressure to the back foot and then a little bit more pressure to the front foot while the knees are maintained. Now you will feel it's kind of a solidity sensation. The muscles are kind of creating the solid base over which you can move the weight to the back and then a little to the front. It's, as you look, if you look at me, it's really a small shift. It's not a big kind of, right, this kind of movement. And if you feel that, bring the foot a little bit more forward, okay? So that front foot tiny bit more forward, so you don't have this kind of lunging aspect of the shifting to the front. And then see, can you maintain this verticality of the front lower leg a little bit as you move the foot, move the weight to the front foot. Very good. Stand a moment. Notice the sensation of the legs after they were in this asymmetrical position. And now let's switch. Put one foot, the other foot in front. Find where you are over the 2 feet, more on the front, more on the back. What kind of weight makes it possible for you to be supported? And now gently bend your knees wherever you are first. And now please bring the weight to the back foot a little bit more, so that you feel a tiny bit more pressure. You feel the back heel a little bit. If you need to shorten the step to be comfortable here, please do. Find your breathing, and then just softly bend, soften both knees. Of course, as you bend your knees, there may be a sensation in your ankles, in your hips, higher up. Try and find the breathing here. Find the breath. And then let's move the weight to the front foot. And you see, it's a very small shift. A little bit more pressure to the front foot. Feeling the ball of the foot. If you feel your way, right, you may want to have that step a little bit longer. You don't have to. And then see, with the weight on the front foot, bend and straighten. Look down and notice, can you see the front foot as you're bending the knees? Or do you see the knee obstructing the view? If that's the case, move that foot a little bit forward and see, can you find the way to be on the front foot where the lower leg is perpendicular. So the pressure goes through the lower leg straight down to the foot. And we'll definitely do more about that. Just something to notice now. And then bring the weight to both feet so that you're somewhere in between. You feel the back foot, the back heel. You feel the front foot, and then you go down, then you come up. Notice as you do this little movement, right, is there breathing available? Is that full inhale, full exhale? And then stay down and see, can you shift that pressure between your feet a little tiny bit? I'm not talking about the full weight on one foot and the other, but just beginning to find, okay, I can do something in myself and have a little bit more awareness, more presence on the front foot. And I can do something to be more on the back foot. Very good. Stop, stand a moment. Take a breath. Notice the sensation in your legs. Your leg muscles now begin to work a little bit more, maintaining you in this position. And then again, take a walk. Take a walk. Notice what that walking feels like after this. Some of you may feel something different about the weight moving through your feet and through the ankles. Some of you may notice something different in the knees or the hips. Excellent. Now, let's tackle the movement of the pelvis. So bring your chair, okay? Take a moment and just sit. For many of you, this will be a review. If you've done Feldenkrais lessons before, you know about this. Let's sit. I have a little pad because the stool is kind of short for me, but here we go. So settle yourself on the chair, forward part of the chair. So feel your sit bones, right? Find your sit bones, the bottom of your pelvis, these two bones that kind of lean, especially if you have a hard surface, you'll feel them. And then let's think about the pelvis, right? You can touch it. You have the top of the pelvis right below your waistline on the sides. You have the sit bones on the bottom. There is the edge of the pelvis in the back. You can maybe follow a little bit. And then there are these two bumps in the front on the sides of your belly that you can find. And of course, there's a pubic bone in the front and the tailbone in the back that also can give you some sense of, here's my pelvis. Now, pelvis is supporting the spine, and there's movement that we can do, tilting the pelvis a little bit back, meaning we roll on the sit bones backwards, and your tailbone kind of drops a little bit, right? And if you touch or listen to your back, you'll notice, oh, my back is getting a little bit rounder, a little fuller. Just simple. A little back, and then come, return to where you were. And do this several times. This is one basic direction of the pelvis that we all know. And then you roll a little bit, tiny bit more forward, where that length of the back of you gets a little smaller, and then the belly becomes a little bit longer. So you can think of the distance between the ribs and the pelvis in the front, right? You can even kind of touch it with your hands. And then as you roll the pelvis forward, you feel that distance shortens. You bring the belly a little in, it becomes shorter, the pubic bone comes up a little bit. Yeah, we call it flexion or rounding. And then if you roll on your sit bones in the opposite direction, now that distance becomes a little greater in the front. But then if you think of the ribs to pelvis distance in the back, that gets a little bit smaller. Your lower back becomes a little bit shorter. There's arching that happens. If it's uncomfortable for any of you, don't push it. Really small movement is enough. And then you can go a little bit one way and a little bit the other way. For some of us, we like to go into one direction and not so much to the other. Please adjust it to what your body needs. Don't push. There's no need to exaggerate anything, but just your understanding of belly goes in, shortness in the front, pelvis, pubic bone comes up, something changes in your groin, notice. And then as you roll forward on your sit bones, that changes. The lower back comes a little bit together, tailbone lifts, pubic bone drops, right? And the belly becomes a little longer. And then go one way, go the other way, You release the belly here. Here the belly pulls in a little. Just soft, easy movement back and forth. Right? And notice how that pelvis begins to tilt, rotate around your hip joints, one way and the other way. You can make it really tiny and feel, where is that little bit of middle range of that for me? Great. Let it go. Let's put the chair away. Now we want to bring this movement up to standing situation. So how do we do it? We stand with the feet symmetrical. And we bend the knees a little, right? Feel now we have the sense of the pressure of the feet on the floor. We know about bending the knees, and we stay with the knees soft. How far down? Totally up to you. When we soften and bend the knees, the hips bend a little, the ankles, that begins to allow us to have some movement in the pelvis. And that's what we do. So now we maintain the legs, so the legs don't change. You have the foundation here. And now you begin to tilt the pelvis up a little bit. Belly may go in. The back gets a little longer. The tailbone drops. And then you go a little bit the other way. Releasing the abdomen, feeling that length, the ribs to the pelvis distance increase. And the pelvis tilts a little bit forward. And again, right, if you know, oh, I don't like that arching sensation in my back, don't go very far with this. Right? Just find a little movement one way and the other. For some of you, it may be much easier to allow the pelvis to drop forward. That's my pattern for sure, right? If you've been pregnant or you were pregnant before, you have tendency, some of you may have tendency to do this. So don't exaggerate it. See, how do I find this opposite direction? Don't insist on anything. Just think of little one way, little the other way. You can pay attention to the distance from the pelvis to the ribs again, right? Opening, pulling the belly in. When you're in, right, the knees are still bent. Pubic bone comes up a little bit. You have a little drop here in the back. Notice that your head is still kind of looking straight ahead. You're standing, right? We want our teleceptors to be available for us. But that doesn't mean you have to isolate this movement just to the pelvis. You can feel something if you touch your spine, right? You may feel that there's a little change in some of the vertebrae of the spine. Maybe not all, maybe some places don't change. You just see. Good. Stop. Rest a moment. Walk around if you feel a little tired from maintaining this position. Great. Let's stand again. Last element today. We will look at where our weight is on our feet and can we find this movement. So bring your weight a little bit more towards your heels. Bend your knees softly, tiny, tiny bit. And now do a little flexing, a little extending of the pelvis, the spine, wherever it can happen. Belly goes in, belly goes out. Yeah, and it's interesting for some of you that have kind of developed the kind of sensory acuity with the Feldenkrais lessons on the floor. You may notice that having the weight on the heels specifically influences this experience of the movement of the pelvis. Right? It's interesting to have a question, be curious about it. Now, move the weight more to the balls of your feet, just tiniest bit. Some of you just feeling that shift forward may kind of notice, oh, there's something different in my back, there's some change. And then see, can I still find this movement of the pelvis? You can touch the pubic bone and the tailbone and look for that movement there. Right? Pubic bone up, tailbone down, right? As you know, your pelvis is sitting on the two balls of your thigh bones, right? So this gentle movement in the hip joints is very, very helpful. Great. Now let's find the middle. And again, find this movement. So the middle between the front of your feet and the heels. Excellent. Stand, rest a moment, straighten the knees. Notice how much your muscles had to kind of work in your legs. And just gently bend the knees again, just simply, and notice, right? Now that we moved the hips, moved the pelvis, is there something different about the knees being able to bend underneath us? And one last time, please take a little walk. Notice the sensation of walking, walk around your space. So we covered movements of the ankles, we covered beginning of movements in the knees and the hips and the pelvis. So next time, we will take this movement of the pelvis into an asymmetrical position, and we may be able to add some variations with the feet and ankles in this position. Okay, so that's our session. I think I managed to stay in 30 minutes. So we'll take a little bit of time to talk if you have questions. I need to kind of rearrange my situation here. If there are questions, let's see. I'll allow you to unmute yourself, and you can raise your hand or just unmute and speak. We're not a big group.
Hi, Kasia. These movements are becoming a lot easier for me, but the movement
We've
that
been
we
at it
don't
together
do,
for a while.
Yeah, the movement that I mean, with the bent knees, and I realize how much to bend the knees and whatever, but with the straight knees, when I'm moving my weight forward and back, my back heel lifts when I move forward. Is that because my calves are very tight?
Well, it's hard to guess what's going on in your body specifically, right? It could be one reason that the calves are tight and don't allow that movement in your back ankle, because that definitely is needed for us to be able to shift the weight forward. There may be other reasons.
Well, what did you say? Sorry, to interrupt. That it doesn't allow my movement where, in the back or on the ankle?
In your ankle, I said.
Okay,
yeah.
Sorry, I didn't get the
so
word.
It could be what you're suggesting, right? I would experiment with making this step much smaller, and if you do that, does it allow for more of the possibility? Yeah.
I've already made it smaller. That's but and I move my whole torso forward and back. I find that movement now is a lot more difficult than the one where you move the pelvis in.
Interesting. Yeah, because as we bend all the joints, right, that allows us for a little bit more, right? We have more elements to use.
Yes,
right?
We've distributed the movement in different places.
Exactly.
Well.
Exactly.
So,
right,
but the more functional movement for life, I think, is with the bending of the knees. Yes. Especially, or when we walk. Yeah, when we walk, we have to bend the knees a little bit. Yes.
That's right. They have a little bit of the bend, right, as we walk. So absolutely, we want to be able to do both. Right?
I realize that, but I've done better in the more functional movement. So thank you.
You're welcome. Anyone else? Heather, go ahead, Heather.
Hi. Yeah, this allowed me to concentrate in an area that I have been very successful at ignoring. And yeah, in my right thigh, and I have a torqued hip that's hiked, and so
Yeah.
it was like, yeah, no, I don't want to do that. No, I don't want to do that. So, when but at the same time, I haven't attended to it. I've been able to get away with whatever it is that I lots and lots of Feldenkrais is kind of like, oh, skipped over that, not realizing that I've skipped over it until now. And it's like, even though I've been aware that it's restricted, this gives me a tool. So, it's nice.
Wonderful.
It doesn't feel quite as relieved as a lot, because it's still going, not yet, but a great thing to be continuing to focus on. I really appreciate that. And I texted you, I emailed you, I've been suspended. I feel like I've been punished.
I saw that email, and I'm sorry. The best way, if you have trouble signing up or whatever, you will have questions, just shoot an email to office@Better Movement, and Wallace will get back to you, and he will solve the problem.
I will. So I'll see you next Monday, I'm sure. Thank you.
Wonderful. It's thank you for that comment, because it's exactly that, right? That I find for myself that this method, this whole system, allowed me to find solution to problems that I managed to avoid and somehow do things. But if I want to kind of create change and address something clearly and understand more about it, these experiments were really fantastic, are really fun. I use them every day to understand myself better and find forward movement, improvement, change. Okay.
Thank you.
Yes. You're welcome. Yes. Okay. Anyone else?
Oh, I had
Hannah, go.
Okay.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
That's okay.
Sorry.
Hang on, Sheila. Sheila, go.
No, go.
Who goes?
No, Anna goes.
Sheila, Sheila,
Okay.
go, Sheila.
I just wanted to say that I've been doing this since you started, and today I could feel so much more lightness in my hips and space, and my left hip moved better than my right hip, which is, kind of stuck and rotated like Heather was saying. So I was trying to think, so what's the solution? And I was trying not to make it work and just be with the movement. And so I just felt so much better. I never felt my hips like that. That was just great.
Wonderful. Thank you. That's great. I'm so happy for you. Yeah.
Okay.
Anna, go. You're next.
I think, we're at finding a way to bring the weight over the front foot without clenching the metatarsals. That was very obvious for me. So how do you move forwards without sort of adding on tension in the front of the foot?
Yeah. So I won't give you the solution, but I promise that as you experiment with all, that's why there's so many elements, and there's a building up of these possibilities as we go through the system, which is absolutely, amazing. And there's a lot other elements and situations that we'll explore. You will begin to find that. And it's a very common thing that we kind of find ourselves more on the back foot, right? And this movement to the front is not as easy. The back leg gets tired, and then we find, right? I would say there's something probably about how you can move the pelvis over your hip joints, right? Because the pelvis contains center of mass. If we find ways to move that center of mass in different directions and find different options, then you begin to notice, right, I need to do a little bit of one thing, a little bit of the other thing, and then I can find it. So I would just encourage you not to get stuck on this one thing and keep playing with these other elements, and then you'll find it. It has, hip and ankle are two places that are probably very, very important to this movement forward, but there are plenty of others up the chain too, which we will address as we go along. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, one more. No. Okay. So I will continue. So I want to tell you how I set it up. I will continue these lessons live until the first week of December. Then I'm going to the training with Jeremy again in Germany. So I'll roll the recordings of the first set of classes. And then in January, we will continue. I think the best, if you're interested, the best way to sign up is to subscribe to our membership, where you can access all the classes for $69, which I think is really amazing, and you have access to the recordings. I want to tell you that this system taught me and showed me that to really find lasting change in the way that I move and address my problems, I need to practice it. So it's not one lesson that will create magic and then change me forever. It would be wonderful, not my experience. And so that's why it's great to be able to practice this a little bit every day. And I encourage you to, some of these movements are simple to remember. Take them with you as you walk, as you stop here and there, stop and see, can I shift the weight? Can I do something in my ankles? And then go on your walk, right? These little movements can be injected into our day, right? And you have the recording if you sign up, and you can go through the whole lesson again and review. And every time you go through it, you'll find something else with yourself. Okay, Linda.
Good morning. Thank you so much.
Good morning. Hi, good to see you.
You too. So I've heard a lot about Jeremy Krause's program, but I really don't, is there a foundational thing that I could read or watch so I have more context for the progression of how the lessons?
You're talking about just specifically solvents and glue?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because I don't know very much about him or this.
Mm-hmm. I would say his website is a great resource. Okay. Yeah. He does amazing work with children and adults, and this system is kind of additional method that he came up with. Also, Tiffany, who is here, Tiffany has an amazing website also with a lot of information about solvents and glue. She organized the training program for us. So that's also a good place to go. And I'm not aware of a book on the topic.
That's good.
Yeah. But I think these two sources are where I would look for and read. And there's YouTube videos, there's conversations with Jeremy on YouTube about this. So I think you can.
Awesome. I'll just
kind of get some.
Because really, and I don't remember who it was that said it was so true, this kind of glitchy thing that I can organize around, but this really invited me to be in that space. So thank you. It was just great. Just great.
Wonderful. I'm so happy. And the solvents and glue name, which is in the beginning for me was like, what is that? How do I sell it? How do I present it to people? But it really makes more and more sense to me as I practice more and more with myself.
Yes.
Because you learn how to stop somewhere, right? Glue things together where you don't want to move because it's not comfortable. But then you let go of something else in order to move in that particular direction you're looking for, right? So there is this release and there's this holding, tone, relaxation. Yeah, it's really, it's been a wonderful journey for me. So I'm happy you're here and I'm happy you're interested. Okay. All right. So that's our lesson for today. Thank you very much. And I hope to see you all next Monday. Okay.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Take care, everyone.